harvest's end. Once upon a time, in a village cradled by rolling hills and vibrant fields, life blossomed in harmony with the seasons. The air was sweet with the aromatic scent of ripe fruit and the earthy undertones of freshly turned soil. As the sun sank low on the horizon, casting a golden hue over the landscape, Kofi and Oma prepared to celebrate the harvest's end, a time steeped in tradition and joy. Children chased each other through the fields, their laughter a symphony that reverberated against the backdrop of the setting sun. Kofi, a sturdy man with hands calloused from years of toil, stood beside Oma, whose radiant smile mirrored the sun's warmth. Together, they had cultivated their land, nurturing not just crops but a family steeped in love. Their 3 children, Adwoa, Kwame, and little Esi, gathered around, their faces aglow with anticipation of the festivities that awaited them. As the evening unfolded, families gathered in the village square. Banquets of colorful dishes were laid upon the earth, infused with flavors that spoke of the summer's bounty. Moss-green plantains, turmeric-infused stews, and sweet maize cakes tempted the senses. Village elders shared tales of the harvest, threading stories of both triumph and trials through the dance of the flames in the bonfire. Kofi felt pride swell within him, not only for the fruits of their labor but also for the tight-knit community he had helped to foster. As night fell and the stars blanketed the sky, the people sang songs of gratitude, their voices weaving a tapestry of connection. Kofi looked at Oma, her soft laughter mingling with the hushed whispers of the night, and felt a deep contentment settle in his heart. However, as the night wore on, an unease flickered within him like the flames of the bonfire. He had heard murmurs among the villagers. A shadow passed over their previously sunny skies. Rumblings of drought had begun, and the uncertainty of the seasons loomed heavy like dark clouds threatening the village's prosperity. As the festivities continued, Kofi took a moment to step aside, wandering to the edge of the field. Beneath the ancient baobab tree, he paused, its gnarled trunk a witness to countless stories of love and loss. He closed his eyes, wishing for guidance as he remembered his father's words. In every season, there is a lesson. But what lesson lay within a drought? Are you worried? Oma's gentle voice broke his reverie, and he turned to see her approaching, concern etching her features. Just thinking about the future, he admitted, swallowing the lump in his throat. What if the rains do not come? Oma stepped closer, her presence a comforting balm against his rising fears. Then we will adapt, as we always have. Together, we can weather any storms. Her words held a strength that soothed Kofi's heart, the way sunflowers turned to face the light. As the night pressed on, they danced with their children, the rhythm of their united hearts echoing in the calm of the joyous celebration. But beneath the gaiety, Kofi felt an echo of uncertainty, a hidden seed of worry not yet planted in the village's collective consciousness. Days turned into weeks, and the promises of a bounteous harvest faded into a distant memory. News of the drought spread, like a thief in the night, stealing hope from the villagers' eyes. And soon, Kofi would come to face a dilemma that tested not only his resilience but the very fabric of his love for Oma. The next morning, the sun rose with a heavy glare, relentless against the parched earth. The fields that had once danced in green swayed now in a brittle, dusty hue. As Kofi worked the land, a sense of foreboding hung heavily around his shoulders, like the thick humidity before a summer storm. He looked at the horizon, where the sky stretched endlessly, and clenched his fists, calling upon strength and faith, 2 companions he had relied upon his entire life. But as the days lengthened, the villagers began to gather in hushed circles, sharing fears of empty granaries and the shadow of starvation that loomed on the horizon. "Father, when will the rains come?" little Esi asked one evening, her sparkling eyes searching for answers Kofi did not have. "I do not know, my sweet," he replied, his heart aching. The weight of every unanswered question rested upon his chest, a heavy stone he could not cast away. As darkness fell and crickets began their evening chorus, Kofi wondered if their laughter would ever again ring out freely in the village square. It was a time of celebration, but that joyous laughter now felt like an echo of a life that could be. "Tomorrow, we will go to market," ambitious Kofi stated, trying to capture the spirit of the past despite the hard reality ahead. The villagers would need to share their burdens, gather together, and confront what loomed, a collective challenge made stronger through unity. Fate, however, had plans of its own. As Kofi picked up the remnants of the day, a spark of worry ignited a flickering flame within him, a precursor to the tumultuous journey that lay ahead for him and Amma, one that would stretch the bonds of love and test the limits of loyalty. With Amma by his side, Kofi clung tightly to hope, aware that every harvest tells its own tale, and perhaps their story was just beginning to unfold. Whispers of despair. The sun hung heavy in the sky, casting a relentless glare over the parched fields of Kofi and Amma's farm. Dust swirled in the air, creating a haze that seemed to blanket the village in a shroud of unease. What had once been lush and vibrant was now cracked and desolate, each moment of drought stretching into an eternity of worry. As the sun sank lower each day, Kofi worked tirelessly, tilling the dry soil in the hopes that some hidden moisture would emerge. Each thrust of his hoe felt lighter, as if the earth itself was losing its weight, its spirit sapped by the unforgiving sun. Amma, sensing his struggle, often joined him despite the heat, her loyal presence an unwavering source of strength. But even she could not prevent the creeping despair that threatened to engulf their home. One afternoon, as Kofi wiped the sweat from his brow, he noticed Amma sitting on a patch of shade, arms wrapped around her knees as she watched the horizon. Her face bore a serene expression, yet Kofi could see the flicker of concern beneath it. He approached her, crouching beside her and offering a soft smile. "Amma, I sometimes ask myself how we arrived here. Just weeks ago, we were celebrating the harvest," Kofi said, his voice tinged with worry. Amma sighed, her gaze fixed on the horizon where the twilight began to set in. "Every season has its beauty, Kofi, but this is a test. We must find strength in it, for our children's." Kofi nodded, knowing deep down that his family depended on his resilience. Yet doubts began to fester within him like weeds on their once cherished land. Would they survive this drought? Would their children feel the pangs of hunger that crept closer every day? The next day, they attended the village market, which had become a somber gathering place for those feeling the weight of despair. As they walked through the stalls, Kofi witnessed the unease rippling through the crowd like a silent wave. Many had come to barter, bringing whatever little they could muster, dried grains from previous years or the remnants of a dwindling harvest. Conversations were whispered, each word laced with worry and longing. "Have you heard about the elders' meeting?" one villager asked another, his voice barely above a whisper. "They say the rains may not come at all this year." Kofi felt a sense of dread creeping up his spine. He had feared this. With little food to share, the true hardships of drought began to haunt their once thriving community. He gripped Amma's hand tightly as they approached a stall selling dried beans. A woman with tired eyes smiled faintly and offered a small bag. "In a time like this, even this bowl brings hope," she said with a nod towards the bag. Kofi could see the desperation etched in her features. "Thank you," Amma replied, her warm demeanor shining through the shadows of despair. Kofi wanted to shield her from the pain that surrounded them but could find little solace within himself. As they continued through the market, whispers of impending famine floated by them, igniting wildfires of fear in every heart. Children played half-heartedly in the dusty streets, their laughter subdued, as parents kept cautious watch. The villagers had once rejoiced together, now they appeared more like shadows corresponding to the sun's dwindling light. "Kofi," Amma said softly as they maneuvered through the crowd, "let us seek out the elders. Perhaps they have answers." Moving toward the elders' abode, Kofi felt an unusual heaviness in the air. The elders, wise and revered, were known to craft solutions when fate wove a tight web around their lives, but Kofi feared the conversations they might have. Facing dark truths often led to unfathomable decisions, a thread of fear tugging at his heart. The elders gathered in a semicircle beneath a towering mango tree, its branches drooping under the weight of the season's struggle. The air was steeped in tension, and Kofi could hear the low murmur of voices as he and Amma approached. "Ah, Kofi and Amma," Elder Nia greeted them, her face lined with wrinkles that spoke of countless histories. "Come, join us. We are discussing the future of our crops and the vows that bind us as a community." The couple sat on the grass, surrounded by the fading rustle of foliage. The elders were solemn, their features marked by the knowledge of lives intertwined with the earth. Kofi listened intently as they expressed concern over the dwindling food supplies and the lack of rain. "We have called a meeting to address our options, Elder Kofi," no relation to Kofi the farmer, spoke gravely. Though we have always lived in harmony with the elements, we must remember that not all storms will pass without consequence. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Kofi's heart raced as he listened to their discussions of possible sacrifices to the spirits of the land. No one spoke of Mawu, the enigmatic woman who had visited them, but Kofi felt her presence lingering in the corners of their minds. "Maybe we could," began one elder, but another quickly cut him off. "No matter the paths we consider, we must remember who we are. Sacrifice cannot be taken lightly." The air grew thick with uncertainty, and Kofi felt the weight deepening on his shoulders. As evening shadows settled over the village, Kofi's unease merged with rising emotions. The elders, wise but unable to quell the deep-seated fear churning within each villager, left them standing at the precipice of dread. Walking home that night under a sky littered with stars that felt far too distant, Kofi couldn't shake the whispers of despair clinging to him like the dust from the fields. Oma walked beside him, her hand warm in his. "Oma, if it comes to sacrifice," he began, the words hanging heavy between them. Oma halted, turning to face him, her eyes fierce under the starlight. "We will endure whatever awaits us together, Kofi. We are more than mere farmers. We are a family woven from strength and loves." Kofi drew a breath, unsure if hope or fear would win this battle of the heart. In her gaze, he saw the flicker of resilience, yet the echoes of uncertainty loomed large. Each step home felt like traversing a tightrope strung between faith and despair, with the daunting unknown waiting to catch them if they fell. The elders' arrival. The sun hung high in the sky by the time the village had awoken to another day of heat and dust. Each hour dragged like the slow-moving shadows cast by the few remaining trees that offered refuge from the blaring sun. Life had become an exercise in endurance, with the villagers increasingly anxious about the fate of their crops and families. Kofi and Oma had spent the morning searching for any hints of moisture in their land, but the only water to be found lay a precarious distance away, in the river that now flowed with half-hearted murmurs. As they trudged toward the riverbank, their children, Adwoa, Kwame, and little Esi, played nearby, their laughter a soothing balm to the heavy air filled with uncertainty. Amid their mundane routines, a ripple of intrigue stirred through the village as the elders announced a special gathering. Whispers floated among the villagers, sparking a flicker of hope intertwined with anxiety. What could the elders possibly want to discuss during these desperate times? Rumors of an imminent solution danced on eager tongues, mixing with the dusty air. Kofi felt something shift inside him. Could this be the moment of salvation, or was it merely another distraction from the reality of their plight? The elders, wise and experienced, often brought clarity when shadows loomed large, but their silences spoke as loudly as their words. Resolved to attend, Kofi and Oma gathered their children and made their way toward the village square, where anticipation hung like ripe fruit ready to fall. As they arrived, the square was filled with villagers clustered together, some exchanging anxious glances, others discussing what they hoped to hear from the elders. The tension was palpable, coated with the silent prayer that the meeting would yield good tidings. With a sudden rustle, the elders emerged from their own circle, led by Elder Nia, revered for her gentle wisdom and deep understanding of the land. Her presence commanded respect, and as she began to speak, the crowd stilled, waiting with bated breath. "My dear friends," she began, her voice calm yet resonating with emotion, "we gather here today as a community bound by our love for the land and for one another. These past weeks have tested our resolve and faiths." Kofi shifted uneasily as Elder Nia continued, "Though hardship has gripped our hearts tightly, we must remember that together we can face this storm." A murmur of acknowledgement rippled through the crowd, yet shadows of doubt hung close. "Today, we have summoned help from beyond our village." Elder Nia gestured to a cloaked figure who emerged from the crowd, her silhouette casting an enigmatic presence against the sunlit backdrop. "This is Mawu, a wise woman who knows the rhythms of the earth and the secrets of the spirits. She has traveled far to aid us in our hour of needs." Gasps echoed around the square, mixed with incredulous curiosity and unspoken fear. Mawu shuffled forward, her flowing garments colored in hues of earth, reflecting her deep connection to the world around her. Her hair, silver and wild, framed her face, while penetrating eyes revealed years of wisdom and understanding. With a soft but steady voice, she began to speak, captivating the villagers with her words. "I have seen your struggles," Mawu declared, her gaze sweeping over the crowd. "The spirits have shared with me what is needed to rekindle the bond between you and the land. In times of loss, we must offer something profound to restore balance." An unsettling silence fell as the villagers absorbed her message. Kofi felt his heart race. A sense of dread mixed with intrigue enveloped him. What could that something profound entail? The words lingered, wrapping around him like a cloaking mist. Mawu continued, "I propose a ritual that honors the ancestors, seeking their guidance. To restore your land, a sacrifice must be made to appease those who have come before you." At the mention of sacrifice, murmurs erupted through the villagers, a mixture of disbelief and apprehension igniting between them. Kofi felt the grounding beneath him tremble. The weight of the suggestion hung thick, threatening to crush the fragile thread of hope he had held onto. Alma instinctively squeezed his hand, her eyes wide with worry as she whispered, "Kofi, sacrifice? What could that possibly entail?" "I do not know, but we must listen. The situation is dire," he replied, unable to mask the tremor in his voice. Kofi's mind raced as he glanced around. The faces of his fellow villagers mirrored his own unease, painted with horror and confusion. Elder Kofi stepped forward, attempting to restore some order. "Let us not be hasty in our judgments. We must weigh our options and discuss what Mawu proposes." The villagers murmured their agreement, gathering closer as they conferred among themselves, the tension rising as discussions sparked. With every word exchanged, Kofi felt his heart sink deeper, losing hope amid an ocean of fear. As the assembly devolved into chaos, Mawu stood calmly, her piercing gaze resting on Kofi. "Sometimes it is not the offering we envision, but the love that drives it," she said, her voice barely rising above the ruckus. Kofi caught her eye, absorbing the weight of her words. What could love amid sacrifice mean? What boundaries would they dare cross for the sake of survival? As the villagers resumed their heated discussions, Kofi stole a moment to think in the space between voices. He realized they were at a crossroads, a chance to confront their fear or succumb to it. The weight of choice settled heavily upon him. "If love truly drives this offering," he murmured to Alma, "what lengths are we willing to go to preserve our family?" Alma's response remained unspoken, her eyes reflecting the internal battle that raged within her. Kofi swallowed hard, knowing that more than crops were at stake. The very essence of their family and village rested upon this precipice. As the sun dipped lower, casting elongated shadows across the square, the whispered possibilities of despair mingled with threads of hope. There was a long road ahead, and uncertain times awaited, but with Mawu's arrival, they might yet harness the strength buried deep within them all. A heart divided. The evening air hung heavy with tension as Kofi sat on the wooden bench outside his home, eyes cast down at the dusty ground. The world around him dripped with uncertainty, each drop a reminder of the drought, a constant pain in his heart. The vibrant laughter of his children, typically a symphony of joy, had turned into a distant echo overshadowed by impending dread. Alma was inside, preparing a meager meal from their dwindling supplies. He could hear her soft hum, a melody that soothed his fraying nerves, but the truth couldn't be masked by song. Their pantry had become a shadow of its former self, and what remained was not enough to quench the hunger that was slowly creeping into their lives. That day, his mind had been tormented by Mawu's proposal for sacrifice. Could it really come to that? The idea of offering someone to appease the spirits felt foreign to him, something out of a distant past that should have stayed buried. The discussion among the villagers echoed in his head, a cacophony of ideas ranging from desperation to dread. As a parent, his first instinct was to protect his family, yet, he sensed that the stakes were rising higher than he had ever imagined. What if the offering demanded was not simply a ritual but a sacrificing of the very essence of their love? With a heavy heart, Kofi rose and stepped through the doorway, where the fragrant aroma of a simple stew mingled with the warmth of home. His 3 children were gathered around the small table, wide-eyed and eager as always. Adwoa was reading a story to young Esi, her gentle voice carrying tales that transported them to distant lands. Kwame sat absent-mindedly, his fingers tracing lines in the mud. "Father, come join us," Adwoa chirped, breaking through Kofi's reverie. but he felt a shadow cast over their laughter. Kofi sat down, forcing a smile despite the darkness swirling inside him. "What are you reading?" he asked, hoping to bask in the light of their innocence. "A tale of a brave prince who saves his village from famine," Adwoa said, eyes sparkling with life. He had to face many challenges and ultimately discovered something very powerful. "Like what?" Kofi prodded with feigned enthusiasm. "Love. And what one is willing to do for those they care for," Adwoa said, glancing toward Oma, who raised her eyebrow knowingly, as if recognizing the weight of the conversation. Kwame chimed in, "Sometimes a sacrifice must be made, or so they say. But it doesn't have to be life or death. We can share. We can adapt and find new ways." Their words struck Kofi like arrows piercing through the fog of his doubts, but the conversation had enveloped him so deeply that he could feel a fracture beginning to form. Oma joined them, carrying a pot of stew and serving it into small bowls. "Food may be limited, but our love and creativity can nourish us," she said lightly, yet her eyes betrayed the worry that besieged her heart. As they shared the meal, Kofi's internal struggle became unbearable. He felt the weight of his family's future pressing down on him, the burden of their survival intertwining closely with the transformative proposal Mawu offered, altering the very fabric of his beliefs. After dinner, Kofi retreated to the corner of their yard, needing to breathe but wishing he could escape the relentless thoughts. Night crept in, and stars blinked overhead, reminding him of everything precious that had once filled his life with meaning. He gazed up, the vastness of the night sky offering solace while simultaneously deepening the void inside him. Oma joined him moments later, her presence both comforting and alarming. "You are burdened," she said, her voice soft yet piercing through the stillness. "What are you thinking, Kofi?" He hesitated, wrestling with the walls he had built around his heart. "I can't help but feel that the Elder's decision, Mawu's words, place us at a precipice. It feels inner turmoil. Sacrifice goes against all I believes." Oma reached for his hand, grounding him as an unspoken connection thrummed between them. "The gods have gifted us with wisdom through our ancestors. Perhaps they provide us the means to endure. But can we truly trust such a path? Is this sacrifice truly necessary? I don't fear for myself, but for you and the children," Kofi confessed, tears glistening in his eyes as emotions threatened to spill over. "What if the offering is more than merely a ritual? What if it requires too much of us?" Oma looked deeply into Kofi's eyes, her brows furrowing with concern. "What do you mean? You are not alone in this. I can't fathom losing you, Oma. I simply cannot," Kofi whispered, gripping her hand tighter. "You are everything to me. We've fought so hard for our family." Oma took a step closer, sensing his despair echoing in every word spoken. "Kofi, we must remain united. If we lose hope, we lose everything. Together, we'll find a way. We can face whatever lies ahead, as long as we stand together." The bond they shared was frail yet potent. Kofi lifted his chin, absorbing her strength. "What would a life without you look like? I cannot allow it to come to a choice that separates us." Warmth filled Oma's gaze, threading back to the promise they made upon their marriage. "We will remain bonded by love, no matter the hardships. We will pray to the ancestors, ensuring their guidance provides clarity." A soft silence enveloped them like a shared blanket, both acknowledging the depths to which fear could drive even the strongest hearts. As they stood against the backdrop of the starlit sky, Kofi contemplated the impossible choice that seemed imminent. How much of one's soul could be sacrificed for love? A heart divided could not thrive. The sanctity of family must endure. In that moment, Kofi knew that he had a decision to make, and the crossroads they stood at would define not only their family's future but the very essence of love, sacrifice, and community. The battle between hope and fear would rage on, but he was no longer a passenger on this journey. He could fight for love, no matter the cost. The choice presented. Dawn broke over the village like a hesitant whisper, the sunlight glimmering through the dusty haze that cloaked Kofi's heart in uncertainty. He sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the wooden beams above, feeling the weight of the previous night's discussions heavy on his chest. Oma lay beside him, her form peaceful and serene, unaware of the storms raging within him. The rhythmic sounds of the village awakening broke the silence. Children played just outside their window, their laughter a stark contrast to Kofi's tumultuous thoughts. He couldn't shake the feeling that their world was on the brink of a profound shift, one that would test the very fabric of their family. With Mawu's proposal lingering in the air, Kofi knew that soon, he would be called upon to make a decision that could alter their lives forever. After a moment of gathering his thoughts, Kofi slipped out of bed and made his way through the modest home. He found his children nestled together, still lost in dreams. Adwoa's brow was furrowed slightly as if she could sense the turmoil beneath their family's surface. Kwame lay sprawled out, limbs every which way, while Esi clutched her beloved doll tightly, innocence draping over her like a protective blanket. Kofi took a breath, haunted by the thought of what sacrifice might mean for them. How could he choose between the life he loved and an unseen duty? He wanted to protect his family and hold onto the love that had guided him through the darkest nights. After preparing a simple breakfast, he nudged Oma gently awake. "Morning, love," she murmured, sitting up and brushing the sleep from her eyes. Her smile softened some of the weight in Kofi's heart, but the day ahead hung heavy. As they shared breakfast in silence, Kofi struggled to find the right words. He could see the trust in Oma's eyes, but beneath her calm surface lay the same worry that gnawed at him. Little did she know that the village called for action, for choices that would demand the essence of their very beings. "Is today the day the elders will speak?" Oma asked, breaking the silence. Kofi nodded, his throat dry. "Yes, I think they will address Mawu's proposal. I fear they will expect us to respond to her guidance." Oma's brow furrowed. "Do you think they will press for a decision soon?" "I've been thinking about it all night, Tool." He sighed. "I don't know, but the whispers among the villagers reflect desperation. The reality of our situation is closing in on all of us." They finished breakfast quietly, and Kofi found himself drawn into the intricate patterns of the clay walls, his heart heavy with the uncertainty of the day to come. The sun crested the horizon, and the village began to stir. Kofi could sense a palpable shift in the air as he and Oma made their way to the village square. The tension was thick, as villagers gathered in clusters, their faces painted with worry. Elder Kofi stood at the center, raising his hand for silence. "Friends, we convene today with heavy hearts, seeking to address the path forward in these uncertain times. As we weigh Mawu's words, we must confront the essence of our existence. Some choices might be necessary." Kofi's breath caught in his throat. As the elder continued to speak, he felt the clarity of the resolve wash over the crowd. With every word, Kofi could feel the reality forming, a choice that lingered on the precipice of their lives. The air crackled with tension, and he exchanged fleeting glances with Oma, who seemed equally apprehensive. Mawu, shrouded in wisdom, stepped forward. "I have witnessed the cycles of life and death, the sacred balance that nature demands. Offering does not merely involve loss, it nurtures the roots of renewal if done with love. This is not merely about sacrifice, it is a choice of what bonds us most." A ripple coursed through the villagers, hope mingled with fear. Suddenly, the gravity of what was being asked landed heavily on Kofi's shoulders, an unbearable weight. What was he willing to offer? The thought hung like a shadow in the recesses of his mind. Elder Nia spoke again, her voice steady. "The drought continues to ravage our fields, leaving us on the brink of despair. If we are to restore our land, we must reckon with the choices before us. We may need to come together for an offering that embodies the truest form of loves." Kofi clenched his jaw, anguish mirroring the longing for clarity of purpose. His heart pounded against his chest, echoing the turmoil brewing inside. "Are we prepared to select a representative who embodies our community? A lifeblood of love, strength, and resilience?" Elder Kofi's question hung heavily in the air, inviting the congregation into a realm of uncertainty. Murmurs swept through the crowd, some speaking of mothers, fathers, and children who might take on the burden of sacrifice. Kofi felt a rising panic swell in his gut. Could they truly consider a communal offering that involved the loss of a soul? His heart raced, every fiber of his being screaming against the possibility. Oma's hand found his and squeezed tight, instinctively drawn into their growing sense of dread. "You cannot agree to this, Kofi." "It's wrong," she murmured. The crowd buzzed with contention, and slowly the faces turned toward Kofi, seeing a pillar of hope, a familiar figure, a man they'd trusted to lead them through trials. "Please," Elder Nia implored, "we need a unifying presence to emerge through the darkness. Someone who has the fire to fill our hearts and persist in our fight. This is the call of our ancestors. We must be brave in the face of uncertainties." Suddenly, all eyes rested on Kofi. Time slowed as he felt a swell of expectation, a pressure that made the ground tremble beneath him. The world paused, demanding the decision he had been dreading. As his heart raced, Kofi knew the moment had arrived. The choices surged through his veins, colliding like thunder within him. How far could they go to protect one another? What kind of love could be married to sacrifice without losing part of themselves? Kofi began, but the words faltered on his lips as he considered the implications of the choice before him. The fate of his family, his village, and the intricacies of love and life stood hanging in a fragile balance, waiting for him to reach out and grasp what lay beyond the abyss. In that moment, Kofi felt his heart divided, half longing for unity, and half fighting against a hunger that threatened to swallow everything he loved whole. The choice, born from desperation, loomed larger than he had ever anticipated. The village conclave. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the village as villagers gathered in the square, drawn together by the gravity of the moment. Kofi stood at the edge, the familiar faces of his neighbors etched with anxiety as they converged on the center like moths to a flickering flame. The weight of the decision loomed heavily in the air, thickening the silence that hung over the crowd. Elder Kofi ascended a platform, his voice steady but laced with a hint of urgency. "Friends, we are gathered today to confront the unfolding plight that grips our hearts and threatens our home. The time has come to discuss what must be sacrificed to rejuvenate our lands." Kofi's breath hitched in his throat. Here, beneath the twilight sky, the moment of reckoning was finally upon them. He glanced at Oma, who stood nearby, her eyes wide but resolute. The uncertainty hovering between them felt palpable as they awaited the discussions that would shape their futures. Elder Kofi continued, "We are all aware of the offering suggested by Mawu. This is not simply an act born from desperation, it is a reverence for our ancestors, a return to balance. We must address who or what this offering will beat." The villagers murmured among themselves, tense brows knitting together in thought. Kofi could feel the pulse of fear radiating from the crowd, a collective heartbeat thrumming with doubt and hope. He sensed the conversation would quickly escalate, emotions running high. One villager, Mama Kojua, a wise matron known for her candor, raised her voice. "How can we choose who to offer? What if those we love most are taken?" A ripple of fear swept over the crowd, the murmurs turning to anxious chatter. "Mama Kojua speaks the truth," another villager added. "How can we make such a choice without tearing apart the very fabric of our community?" Kofi felt the knot of dread tightening around his chest. These thoughts echoed his own fears. He had already seen how swiftly despair clawed at the hearts of families. The burdens of sacrifice ran deep. What would be lost if they made the wrong choice? "I propose we take a vote," Elder Kofi offered, raising a hand to silence the waves of dissent. "We should seek a communal decision. Let each person express their support for a chosen path, binding us together in unity." The crowd hesitated, glances exchanged like passing secrets. Kofi felt a mix of relief and dread surge within him. A vote might bring clarity but also expose the divisions that lay hidden beneath the surface. "What if we lose someone dear to us?" a voice cried from the back, echoing the concern that filled every parent's heart. Kofi's pulse quickened, his mind racing. The implications were staggering. With each passing moment, the specter of sacrifice loomed larger, threatening to devour them whole. Elder Nia approached, an aura of calm surrounding her. "We must lead with courage and open hearts. The spirits call for a choice, yes, but an informed and united one. Each of us must weigh our love for community against the love we hold for our families." As she spoke, Kofi felt the grounding embrace of Oma's hand find his, a silent testament to their bond. He searched her gaze, seeking the strength they had cultivated together, but saw the flicker of fear reflected in her eyes. "Perhaps we could offer something symbolic rather than a life," one villager suggested. An item of great significance or a gathering of our collective resources could suffice. That may yield little more than empty promises, another countered, stirring the crowd into further debate. Kofi's heart pounded as discussions escalated. With every suggestion, voices grew louder, emotions flaring. It was clear the fear was woven tightly into the fabric of their community, and the looming prospect of sacrifice threatened to unravel it entirely. Determined, Kofi stepped forward, fueled by desperation and purpose. What if we consider the root of our struggles? The drought may demand sacrifices, but we must look beyond ourselves. How can we renew our land together, rather than losing parts of ourselves as individuals? Eyebrows were raised, and shoulders relaxed slightly at his words. Kofi took a breath, his heart racing as he continued. We need solidarity, not separation. They say the strongest bonds are those forged during times of challenge. What if instead of a life, we unite our labor, resources, or renewed commitments to care for one another? A hush fell over the crowd, contemplation replacing the earlier apprehension. Elder Kofi nodded, clearly stirred by Kofi's passionate resolve. An offering for the land is needed, yes, but it is our collective spirit that can lead us to restoration. What if we return to the land together, as one? The villagers caught the spark of hope igniting within Kofi's words. Slowly, people began to murmur admiration and agreement, a gentle wave of encouragement washing through the square. What if we each contribute something from our harvest, whatever little remains? Mama Kojua suggested, eyes bright with renewed purpose. This offering may not take away from our love but rather strengthen our ties. Together we stand, alone we falter. Kofi felt a swell of pride, his heart beating steady with determination. He glanced at his children, who were now huddled close to Oma, their eyes wide with the gravity of the moment. As the crowd buzzed with renewed enthusiasm, Kofi realized how much of their fate rested on this very decision. This was not about mere survival, but about honoring the love that had stitched their lives together. Through unity, the deepest bonds could emerge from the ashes of despair. Let us join our resources and cultivate together, Kofi urged, stepping forward with resolve. We can send a message to the spirits, not of despair but of hope, of love. The squabbles began to fade as villagers nodded in agreement, catching the spark of unity igniting across the square. Kofi looked at Oma, her proud smile matching the flame in his heart, and felt the warmth of hope begin to bloom once more. Through the darkness, the village had illuminated a path that didn't require sacrifice of life but rather an offering of spirit. And in that moment, Kofi understood that their tenacity would shine bright against the shadows of doubt. The true strength of their community would rise, stronger than ever, a heart unified, beating as one. A moment of clarity. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm, golden light over the village as Kofi stood on the bank of the river, watching the gentle ripples dance toward the shore. The excitement of yesterday, fueled by unity and promise, still lingered in the air, but a flicker of unease thrummed beneath Kofi's surface. With the decision to face the drought together, the villagers rallied around the idea of pooling their remaining resources. It was a bold move, one that could harden the foundation of their community, yet Kofi felt the weight of uncertainty rest heavily on his shoulders. Would their collective efforts truly be enough to turn the tide? Oma joined him at the riverbank, her presence grounding as she steadied herself next to him. You are deep in thought, she said, tilting her head to meet his gaze, a hint of concern furrowing her brow. Kofi sighed, his mind racing through the possibilities. I worry about the months ahead. We have little left to give, and the drought is relentless. What if our unity is not enough to mend what is broken? Oma watched the water flow, the sunlight catching on its surface, transforming it into a shimmering canvas. Look how it flows around obstacles, Kofi. It never ceases to move, even when times are tough. It bends without breaking. Perhaps we must learn from it. Her words resonated within him. It was true. The river adapted, carving paths through the landscape, nourishing the earth despite the challenges it faced. In that moment, Kofi felt a flicker of clarity amid his uncertainty. Perhaps we are like the river, aren't we? Though we may face harsh conditions, we can find ways to nourish and support one another, to allow our community and love to flourish, he mused, a sense of purpose beginning to emerge from within. Alma smiled gently, her expression reflecting pride and steadiness. Exactly. And in moments of hardship, inspiration can be birthed. Just as the river weaves its story through the earth, we too have our narrative to tell. Kofi took a deep breath, the air rich with the scent of wet earth and wildflowers. The clarity he sought felt within reach, but now awareness blossomed within him, urging him to take action beyond contemplation. He had to harness this moment of clarity into something greater. I want to gather the villagers by the river, Kofi said, determination spreading through his veins. We'll share stories, lessons, and the wisdom of our ancestors. We will remind one another of the strength we hold when united, even during the toughest times. Alma's face lit up with encouragement. That's a marvelous idea, Kofi. We can create a ritual of our own, immersed in love, tradition, and the resilience we have within us. Kofi turned toward her, feeling rekindled spirit in her words. It was not a matter of sacrifice in the sense of loss but an acknowledgement of their bond to the earth and each other. A tribute to their love for their land, families, and the community that had weathered storms before. He cast a glance at the river, bubbling with energy as it flowed steadily. Together, we can harness our unity not just for survival, but to inspire a revival. Boji, a neighbor and a skilled weaver, passed by, greeting them with a curious smile. Kofi seized the moment and beckoned to her. Boji, can you help us gather the villagers for an assembly by the river? We plan to honor our ancestors and share our stories of resilience. She paused, intrigued. What do you have in mind, Kofi? We'll remind everyone of what we stand for, our courage, our love, and our bonds as a community, he said, feeling hope swell within him. We'll gather our remnants, our memories, and honor our commitment to each other and the lands. Boji nodded eagerly, her expressive eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. I'll take it upon myself to invite everyone. This will surely bring them together. As she hurried away, Kofi felt a wave of warmth wash over him. Excitement mingled with purpose, igniting a fire within him. He turned back to Alma, who wore a proud smile. The river's gentle gurgling sound echoed around them, urging him to embrace this clarity further. As villagers began to arrive at the river, Kofi and Alma worked together, setting up benches made of stone and logs along the banks. The atmosphere transformed. The tension of the past weeks dissipated as the scent of blooming flowers filled the air. When the sun finally dipped beneath the horizon, casting shades of orange and pink across the sky, the villagers settled around the riverbank, anticipation crackling in the air. Kofi stood at the forefront, his heart raced with nervousness, but clarity and confidence washed over him. Thank you all for coming, he began, his voice steady despite the butterflies dancing in his stomach. We gather here as one family, united against the currents of hardship threatening to sweep us away. It is time for us to share not only our concerns but the resilience and love we hold within us. The faces around him were a mosaic of hope, each villager reflecting the light of determination. He continued, we all carry stories, experiences that shape who we are, tales of survival, love, and what it means to belong to something greater than ourselves. As Kofi spoke, the river flowed gracefully behind him, a living symbol of persistence. One by one, villagers began to share their stories. Times of struggle, moments of triumph, and lessons learned through adversity. Each tale bonded them closer, erasing the divide that had begun to form under pressure. Kofi listened, hanging on to their collective resilience, and felt his heart swell with pride. This was what unity could accomplish, the embodiment of love woven into every story. Alma stepped forward, her voice warm and soothing as she shared her own tale. I remember the times when our life was simpler, yet rich with family and laughter. We pulled together during harvests and celebrated each other's victories. May we find that spirit once again. With every voice added to the chorus of stories shared, the heavy air lightened, and the darkness of doubt began to recede. Kofi saw camaraderie blossoming among the villagers, hearts knitting together like a beautiful tapestry of strength. As the evening grew darker, the stars twinkled overhead like the memories of their ancestors watching over them. In that moment, Kofi understood the power of unity, not just in times of plenty but deeply rooted in struggles that sustained the life above. It was a defining moment for Kofi and those gathered by the river, acknowledging their shared fears yet rising above them to embrace courage, love, and the promise of a brighter future together. Clarity had woven its way through him, binding him to the resilience of his family, village, and land. Together they stood, stronger than they had ever been, flowing like the river, bending but never breaking, destined to create their own path ahead. The decision. The day arrived with a weight that settled heavily over Kofi's shoulders, the unyielding sun blazing down upon the village, intensifying the air of anticipation. The gathering by the river had ignited a spark of hope in the hearts of the villagers, but Kofi felt a tangible unease gnawing at his resolve. A decision had to be made, and with it, there would be no turning back. He awoke early, the sounds of nature stirring around him while the haunting essence of yesterday lingered in his mind like a distant echo. The villagers offered stories to weave together a future built on love, yet Kofi grappled with the reality that their impending sacrifice lingered like a dark cloud above them. The past few days had revealed the devastating impact of the drought, yet they had given a glimpse of the strength that arose from unity. As he stepped outside, he spotted Oma tending to their small vegetable patch, her fingers working the earth with intent and care. She looked up and smiled, her face a portrait of determination that provided him with a modicum of comfort. "You seem preoccupied," she noted gently, brushing sweat from her brow. "Today is the day we must reveal our choice," Kofi replied, his voice heavy with the weight of his thoughts. "We met last night, but now we have to face the elders. What if our decision isn't enough?" Alma stepped closer, her reassuring presence urging him to confront the choking doubts within him. "Kofi, we've gathered as a community. Whatever we decide will be rooted in love and hope. That is far greater than despair." Taking her hand, he looked into her eyes, searching for the kind of conviction that sustained faith through trials. "I worry I'll fail you. What if we choose wrong? The ramifications could devastate our family and village." "The strongest bonds are forged through difficult choices," she assured him softly, her grip tightening. "Trust in our community. We will find strength together." Kofi inhaled deeply, the air thick with plum and jasmine from the garden surrounding their home. He felt that gentle flicker of determination. Perhaps he was stronger than he believed. As the sun stretched higher, Kofi made his way toward the village square, his heart poised on the edge of uncertainty. The villagers had begun to gather again, their faces a mixture of resolve, fear, and hope, dispelling the shadows of the past. Gathered under the ancient mango tree, Elder Nia and Elder Kofi awaited the assembly, their presence a grounding source of stability amidst the swirling emotions. Villagers filled the space, forming clusters of interconnected souls bound by shared struggles and dreams for the future. Kofi took a deep breath and stepped forward, feeling the weight of countless eyes upon him. "Today, we've come together not only as individuals but as a united community. This decision before us carries the essence of our love and our future." Elder Kofi nodded appreciatively, but concern flickered in his eyes. "We know the power of love can drive us, yet we must also acknowledge sacrifice. The spirit of our ancestors demands a choice." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly, each face reflecting the gravity of the moment. Kofi's heart raced. This was the crux of their struggle, the embodiment of all they had endured. "We've spoken of resilience, unity, and the stories we carry, but we also need to honor the spirits and the earth," Kofi pressed on, his resolve swelling with determination. "What if our offering embodies the essence of our bonds, rather than one life cast aside?" A wave of silence washed over the crowd, startled by his suggestion. The uncertainty hung thick in the air until Elder Nia spoke, her tone firm yet nurturing. "What do you suggest, Kofi? How can we embody such offerings without risking our lives?" Kofi looked across the assembly, scanning the faces of his beloved friends and neighbors. "Let each of us contribute an element of ourselves. An heirloom passed down, a piece of art, or an ingredient from our dwindling harvest. Anything that symbolizes our love for this village and for one another." As the villagers mulled over the notion, light began to fill their eyes, igniting with the spirit of possibility. Boji leaned forward, her voice clear and determined. "Such offerings would reflect our collective soul. They would speak to the roots of our ancestry, reminding the spirits that we honor our interconnectedness. It may also serve to heal the land," urged Mama Kojua. Perhaps such offerings will ground us in the same fertile soil that nurtures our roots. Kofi felt a surge of hope twisting around his heart. They were beginning to see the power of unity, the importance of not simply surviving, but celebrating together as a cohesive family. We must remember, Elder Kofi added thoughtfully, sacrifice does not always take the same form. It can manifest as labor, dedication, and strength shared among one another. As the discussion deepened, Kofi felt the collective energy charging through the square, their hopes knitting together in a vibrant tapestry of possibilities. Each villager had a proposition, and Kofi watched as they rallied behind this shared vision, their hearts intertwining with renewed purpose. Finally, the moment came for a decision. Kofi stepped firmly forward, heart pounding yet full of resolve. Let us choose together. We will gather our offerings to bring forth a ceremony that honors our ancestral bonds and the spirit of loves. The crowd erupted into applause, a cacophony of joy and vigor swelling around him. Hearts once heavy lifted, a tide of excitement rising. As the villagers began to discuss potential offerings, Kofi felt a warmth blossom within him, fueled by the strength of their united conviction. They had forged a decision together, one that held the essence of life, love, and connection, pulling them forward into a brighter tomorrow. Kofi's doubts had begun to dissipate, drifting away like leaves caught in the breeze. He glanced at Oma, who beamed with pride. With her hand in his, he felt anchored in love and purpose, embracing the power of community that would guide them through the crucible of hardship ahead. Through collaboration, they would not return home empty-handed, but rather enriched by the stories and sacrifices that would sow the seeds of resilience along the path they now walk together. The ritual commences. The morning sun broke over the horizon, bathing the village in hues of gold, as villagers gathered in the clearing beside the river to prepare for the ceremony that marked their communal offering. Kofi stood at the riverbank, feeling his heart race with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Today was more than just a ritual, it was a celebration of unity, resilience, and love, a defiance against adversity that threatened to tear them apart. Every villager carried a token of significance, from pieces of jewelry passed down through generations to small ceramic pots filled with seeds, each one symbolizing their commitment to the community and the land. Kofi glanced around, the sight of their shared resolve igniting a fire within him. With Oma by his side, he could sense the energy buzzing through the crowd, each moment infused with hope, love, and determination. "Have you thought about what you'll offer?" Oma asked, her tone light yet imbued with the seriousness of the occasion. Kofi nodded, holding his token close. A small stone etched with the symbol of their family, a reminder of the permanence of their bonds. It wasn't just a physical object but a testament to their heritage and the strength that came from the generations before them. As the villagers began to organize the tokens in a circle by the water's edge, Elder Nia stepped forward, her presence commanding respect. "Today, we gather not only to offer our belongings but to connect our spirits through the love that binds us. This ritual is a manifestation of our commitment to one another, to the land that sustains us, and to the ancestors who guide our paths." Kofi felt his heart swell as she spoke, the words igniting a fervor within. This ritual was different from any seen before. It would transcend mere offerings and transform into a powerful tribute to their unity. Elder Kofi, standing beside the larger elder, raised a hand for silence. "We offer these tokens to the spirits of our ancestors, as a way to remind them of our love and our struggles. May these gifts find their way back to the earth, where new life springs forth from their essence," he pronounced, his voice resonating through the crisp air. As they prepared to commence the ceremony, Kofi caught sight of Boji, her hands busy arranging their collective offerings into an intricate design of seeds, potteries, and woven cloth. She pronounced each item with reverence, infusing the space with ritualistic energy. Once the arrangement was complete, Elder Nia raised her hands above the offerings and began to chant softly, her voice like the soft rustling of leaves. The villagers joined in, creating a harmonious essence that engulfed the clearing, pulling them deeper into the atmosphere of reverence and purpose. The river flowed gently nearby, reflecting the sunlight in a dazzling display. Kofi closed his eyes, allowing the sound of water to wash over him, channeling the energy of the earth and sky. Each note sung echoed within him, weaving a bond that transcended the physical world. As the chant grew in strength, The air shimmered with a palpable vibrance, an indication that the spirits were listening, awakening from their slumber within the earth. Together, they created a tapestry of love woven through stories, connections, and traditions. Kofi stood firm, the stone in his palm warm against his skin, reminding him of the roots they shared. This moment captured not just his family's legacy, but the interconnectedness they all carried in their hearts. He dared to visualize the future and the renewal he so desperately sought. Elder Kofi gestured for silence, signaling that they were ready to begin the act of offering. Now, as we proceed, I ask each of you to voice what this offering means to you. One by one, villagers stepped forward to place their tokens among the offerings. Mama Kojua, with tears glistening in her eyes, placed a beautifully woven basket, a symbol of nourishment and warmth. This basket represents the love of my family, who have passed, she shared. May it remind us that even in absence, their legacy will guide us. Another villager added a delicate bracelet, reminiscences of laughter and connection spilling forth as he spoke of the bond it embodied. With each shared story, fear dissipated further, making way for a collective resolve anchored in love. As Kofi stepped forward, he felt the weight of the stone grow heavier as it represented not just his family, but the collective strength that surged among them. This stone symbolizes my commitment to this village, to my family, and to the earth that sustains us. May it carry our love wherever it is placed, he declared, placing it gently among the offerings. The ceremony continued until the circle of offerings overflowed with tokens of the villagers' memories and promises. Kofi witnessed how each gift was honored, a beautiful representation of their resilience and shared history. As the final token was laid down, Elder Nia beckoned for silence once more. We will now call upon the spirits of our ancestors to receive our gifts, to honor the connections that tie us together. With each offering, we send a piece of our love into the earth, knowing it will return to us in new lives. Kofi glanced at Oma, their eyes locking in silent understanding. Together, they had faced uncertainty, fear, and love, and now they forged a path toward the future. The village, drawn together by a vibrant tapestry of offerings, pulsed with renewed energy as hope blossomed within their hearts. With one final chant, the villagers poured their voices into the river, allowing their emotions to flow freely, released like droplets cascading into the depths of the earth. Together, they were one, stronger than the sum of their parts, ready to embrace the promise of renewal in whatever form it may take. The river danced in response to their invocation, shimmering as a new chapter of life awaited. Today, love would take root, and from this moment on, they would embrace unity as their most powerful weapon. The ritual had commenced, breathing life into the dreams they dared to hold on to. Buried truths. The day after the ritual dawned bright and clear, the aftermath of their communal offering still fragrant in the air. Kofi awoke with a different kind of heaviness settled in his soul, an awareness that while they had come together, deeper truths awaited discovery. The ritual had been a beautiful testament to perseverance, but it was no guarantee that the challenges would cease. As he emerged from the home, he found Oma sitting quietly at the edge of their garden, observing the small seeds they had planted together. A mosaic of hope lay in the soft soil, yet the absence of rain still gnawed at his heart. The land had yet to reflect the beauty of their collective efforts, and today they would need to confront the reality of their situation once more. Kofi approached her, concern etching his brow. When will the first signs of life return? Oma looked up, her eyes searching the sky as if seeking answers among the clouds. We must give it time, just as we have with one another, she replied, her tone steady. But I can't help but feel there are truths buried beneath the surface, those we may need to confront to truly heal. Her words resonated within him, a silent affirmation of the worry resting in his gut. What truths had they buried in their hearts? Kofi knew they couldn't simply hope for the best. Change demanded action, and that challenge rested firmly on the community's shoulders. He took a seat beside Oma, their hands intertwined as they watched the earth. I fear we've only addressed the surface of our struggles. What lies deeper? We have to delve deeper to ensure lasting change. I believe that our ancestors have already paved the way, Oma said, her gaze unwavering. But we have to find a way to honor them beyond yesterday's ritual. There may be questions left unanswered. Kofi's heart raced at her words. It was time to confront their past, to wield their collective memories as tools for renewal. Let's gather the villagers. We will share our truths, those hidden fears and secrets that weigh on us. Amma nodded, a spark igniting in her eyes. They may need encouragement, but this could bring forth what has been buried for too long. With purpose, they made their way to the village square, where the remnants of the previous day's ceremony lingered. The atmosphere held a sense of calm, yet a vortex of unresolved emotions simmered beneath the surface. Kofi called out to his fellow villagers, weary yet hopeful. "Friends, the ritual we shared yesterday was beautiful, a testament to our unity. But I sense there are deeper truths buried within us that we must unearth together." The crowd murmured, looking back and forth between one another. Kofi felt the tension rise, yet this was necessary, unveiling vulnerability so they might emerge stronger as a community. Elder Kofi stepped forward, resonating authority that quieted the whispers. "Kofi speaks truth. There is power in sharing burdens. To heal, we must acknowledge what weighs us down." Mama Kojua stood and took a deep breath, her voice quivering with emotion. "I hold deep sorrow for the season that has passed. When the rains fail, so do memories fade. I fear losing the legacy of my family. I wonder if I can pass down our wisdom." The weight of her admission hung heavy in the air, but Kofi marveled at her courage to speak the truth. Others began to nod in understanding, and as their eyes began to shine with unshed tears, more voices emerged, each revealing burdens that had lain hidden. Boji spoke next, her voice breaking. "Because I was once filled with joy, I fear that I must mask my emotions now. But those smiles can't cover the fear of poverty. I long to keep my family fed, yet the emptiness grows." Kofi stepped forward again, feeling the urgency to unite them. What connects us is love and hope, but to endure, we must reveal the truth of our fears, instead of allowing them to consume us. Speak freely, and let's shed the weight of this despair together. Villagers began to open up, each story a thread weaving through the crowd, knitting them closer together. Kofi listened intently as hidden fears emerged, of loss, failure, and the unknown. The air was thick with emotion, each hardship a testament to the resilience they shared. As the discussions deepened, Kofi felt like a catalyst for change. Their connectedness swelled, rising above the fear, igniting the compassion and empathy that bound them. Elder Nia interjected, her wisdom flowing through the conversation. "Healing begins by acknowledging the past and embracing the bond we share. Remember that our honesty grounds us and reveals the truths we need to survive." Kofi could see the villagers grow stronger with each shared confession, their hearts intertwining as they drew on each other's experiences. With every truth spoken, burdens became lighter and the seeds of hope planted deeper within their community. As the sun began to set, the emotional release felt cathartic yet empowering. Kofi turned to Amma, her face shining in the fading light, with tears lighting up her cheeks. "Thank you for guiding us here today," he said softly. "This is only the beginning," she replied, her voice steady and filled with resolve. "We've brought our fears to the surface. Now, we must remember what we've shared and let our truth bind us together." Here, they had emerged stronger, embracing the buried truths of their experiences, no longer hidden but woven into a tapestry of resilience. They had faced the storms of uncertainty and emerged with a renewed spirit, ready to nourish the land and their spirits. Kofi stood tall, seeing the light of hope flicker bright within the eyes of his fellow villagers. Together, they had unearthed the strength buried beneath their fears, and with that, he knew they could confront any storm in their path. The power of hope. The days following their emotional gathering by the river passed with a renewed sense of purpose among the villagers. The air around Kofi's home buzzed with determination, as neighbors collaborated to share resources and skills. The community spirit that had once wilted under the burden of despair blossomed anew, fueled by the palpable energy of hope. Kofi rose early one morning, feeling invigorated as he prepared to embrace the tasks ahead. He stepped outside to find the village alive with activity. Children's laughter filled the air as they gathered wild herbs and flowers, while adults worked the fields with focused intent, their laughter echoing against the backdrop of hard labor. Amma joined him, her hands already busy gathering supplies before heading to the communal fields. "It feels different this morning, doesn't it?" she said, pausing to take in the scene around them. Kofi nodded, a smile breaking across his face. "It's as if the earth is alive again. Perhaps the energy we shared has ignited something deep within us," he replied, savoring the warmth in the sunlight that kissed his skin. With renewed ambition, Kofi and Oma made their way toward the farmland while discussing their plans for the crops. They aimed to nurture every sprout as they took on a different perspective, rooting their growth alongside their collective memories and resilience. As they reached the fields, Kofi spotted Elder Nia guiding a group of villagers as they prepared to plant new seeds in the earth. Inspired by their experience together, she had suggested they create a collective garden, a living testament to their unity and commitment to rebuild what had been lost. Kofi exchanged knowing glances with Oma. "The garden will represent our hope for recovery, won't it?" he said, his heart swelling with optimism. "Yes, and each seed we plant will serve as a thread woven into the tapestry of our lives," she replied, her voice warm with enthusiasm. As they joined the others, Kofi felt a surge of motivation. They dug, planted, and shared stories, dynamics of kindness intertwining with plenty, creating laughter that danced in the air. Each villager wove their own personal offerings into the soil, a practice of rejuvenation from the earth that symbolized not only hope but connection as well. Days turned to weeks, and the garden flourished, vibrant colors bursting forth with life. The scent of blooming vegetables and herbs wafted through the village, revitalizing their spirits. Kofi marveled at how hope had nestled itself into every corner of their existence, rooting deeper with each passing moment. Yet deep down, Kofi remained aware that the drought had not completely receded. The river maintained its low flow, the earth still thirsting in certain places. He felt cautious optimism, even as new life appeared. The memory of hardship lingered like a shadow. Oma seemed to sense his reservations. "You're troubled," she stated gently, pausing from her work to meet his gaze. "I worry that our hope will be dashed if the rains don't come soon," he admitted, the weight of uncertainty heavy in his heart. "What if our efforts aren't enough?" Oma placed her hand on Kofi's shoulder, her warmth enveloping him. "Hope is never wasted, love. What we've built will continue to nourish us, no matter the conditions. We've planted seeds of courage and unity, and those roots will endure." With her words, Kofi felt the flickering flame of hope bolster within him. Maybe their power resided in the growth they embraced rather than relying solely on outside influences. More than the physical harvest, it was the bond they shared that would sustain them. As days passed, the villagers began to come together regularly, celebrating their resilience with communal meals, songs, and stories under the starry skies. Kofi offered words of affirmation, embracing the importance of remembrance and history in shaping their future. One evening, seated around the flickering fire, the villagers gathered to listen to Kofi and Oma recount the stories of their ancestors, their struggles, love for the land, and the strength that stemmed from community. Each tale, stitched together like an intricate quilt, built upon the others, connecting them through generations. As they welcomed laughter and shared memories, the light of their collective hope began to blaze brighter. Villagers shared the newfound inspiration they felt, how hope was no longer just a feeling, but an action they could cultivate together. Kofi felt his heart swell with joy. As the flickering flames crackled, the warmth of connection drew them closer, as if celebrating the resilience they had discovered. Hope was no longer an abstract concept, it was alive in each shared conversation and supportive hand. But as Kofi gazed toward the starry sky, he couldn't ignore the looming reality that the drought still persisted. Many remained concerned, yet he sensed a shift within the group, a commitment to nurture hope no less than the crops around them. Then, out of the darkened sky, a shadow moved, transforming into gradually falling drops of rain. The villagers held their breath, and Kofi's heart quickened. As the droplets began to burst against the earth, their laughter morphed into joyous shouts. Together they danced, lifting their faces to the sky, allowing the rain to cleanse their spirits, saturate their souls, and quench the waiting earth. In the midst of their celebration, Kofi felt the warmth of Oma beside him, her smile radiant and bright. It was in that very moment he grasped the profound truth. The power of hope would always live within them, propelling them forward against life's obstacles. Their bonds had flourished through the darkest times, and now, with the rain nourishing the land and spirits soaring, Kofi understood they were not just surviving but vibrating with possibility. As the rain kissed the earth once more, he realized he had never been more prepared to face what lay ahead, for hope had ignited a fire within a community bound by the beauty of love, courage, and resilience. Rebirth. The village awoke to a renewed vibrancy, the scent of damp earth wafting through the air as the morning sun broke through the clouds, illuminating the lush scenes of life bursting forth. The rain from the previous evening had breathed new vitality into the land, and the once parched fields now thrived with rich greens and bold colors. Kofi stepped outside his home, taking a moment to breathe in the sweet fragrance of blooming flora intertwined with the earthy scent of soil restored. The previous days had revitalized not only their crops but also the spirits of the villagers. He could feel the energy pulsating through the community, shimmering with the promise of what was to come. Oma joined him outside, her hair glinting like spun gold under the sun's rays. "Look at the garden. It's flourishing," she exclaimed, eyes bright with wonder. Together, they gazed upon their garden. A tapestry of vibrant vegetables, herbs, and flowers, each plant reflecting the love, strength, and hope they had cultivated within the soil. With the rains having nourished their collective offerings, the villagers had gathered earlier to celebrate this rebirth. As they shared in the bounty of the earth, an overwhelming sense of gratitude filled the air. Kofi felt a smile break free, fueled by happiness and pride for what they had accomplished together. "Today, we honor the fruits of our labor," Kofi said, turning to Oma. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" "Yes," she agreed, the corners of her mouth lifting into a knowing smile. "We've learned that together, we can revive what we thought had been lost. The rain is just a reminder of the blessings to come." As the sun began its ascent in the sky, casting the village in golden light, more villagers emerged, gathering in the square with baskets filled to the brim with fresh produce from the garden. The joy was contagious, and laughter rang through the air like melodic notes, intertwining with the whispers of leaves in the gentle breeze. Elder Nia stepped forward, her presence once again commanding the gathered crowd. "Friends, today we celebrate not only the abundance thriving around us but also our journey together, through adversity and despair, and into the beauty that rebirth can bring. This newfound life is a testament to our unity and love for one another." Mama Kojua nodded in agreement, her voice echoing wisdom built over years. "Let us remember that just as the earth replenishes itself, so too can we, as a community. Each of us carries the light of hope, woven from the stories we've shared and the truths we've embraced." The villagers began to share their hopes for the future, aspirations that extended beyond their daily struggles. Kofi felt a sense of urgency bloom within him. He stepped forward, taking a breath to steady his nerves. "This rebirth is our chance to build a legacy for our children," he declared, passion fueling his words. "Let us ensure we nurture these bonds, fostering love and security, so they never know the depths of despair we faced." Inspired by his declaration, the villagers erupted in cheers, voices raised like the chorus of a vibrant song. The sense of community enveloped Kofi, filling him with warmth and purpose. They had all collectively recognized the vitality that sprung from their intertwined lives. Together, they gathered in the center of the square, making plans to embed their values into the very fabric of their lives. They outlined how to maintain and expand the garden, emphasizing teaching the children about planting, nurturing crops, and remembering the importance of honoring the past while nurturing the hopes for the future. As the discussions flowed seamlessly, children began to dart in and out of the crowd, their laughter ringing like chimes of innocence and joy. Kofi's heart warmed as he watched them, embodying the very hope they sought to safeguard. He too found himself laughing and playing along, rediscovering a piece of himself that had long been dormant amid the struggles. Later that day, as the sun began to set, casting orange and crimson hues across the sky, Kofi and Oma led the villagers to the garden, where they planted new seeds together. These seeds would symbolize the renewed future they had all worked so hard to achieve, nurtured by love's enduring strength. The earth welcomed their offerings, scorching sun replaces with nourishing warmth, a paradise emerging from the ashes of hardship. With each seed buried into the soil, the spirits of hope and resilience rose stronger, reminding them that what had once seemed impossible could take root in the nourishing earth of their community. With unified efforts, they pledged to care for the land, a sacred promise to honor their roots and keep the memory of their ancestors alive. Laughter erupted as they played in the garden, each villager's hands in the soil, reverberating with an energy that resonated through their hearts. As twilight began to pull its cloak across the sky, stars slowly emerged, twinkling like bright memories painted against the inky canvas. Kofi felt a wave of serenity wash over him, that, despite an uncertain path ahead, they had emerged transformed, ready to embrace whatever challenges that lay on the horizon. Rebirth was not merely an act, it had manifested through love, tenacity, and unity. Together, they would rise stronger, fortified in their commitment to one another, the earth, and the hope for a future that glimmered like the stars above. In that moment, Kofi felt a deep sense of peace settle into his heart, knowing that as long as they remembered the power of unity, they would always find a way through even the darkest of days. And so, the village, reborn in the light of hope, would flourish, forging a legacy that would echo down generations, an enduring reminder of the strength that love can possess.